Hello everyone and welcome to Harv's World. Today we are taking a look at the ProSeed mod by Wopster. Now this mod just hit ModHub a few days ago, maybe not quite a week, and the purpose of ProSeed is to create tramlines in your fields so that when you come back over with a fertilizer sprayer or spreader or any other piece of equipment, you don't have to destroy your crops. You can go right down those tram lines, and they are unplanted rows basically set to your tire tracks and laid out across the field or along the field to the width of whatever equipment you're going to be using after you've planted. So we're going to start by jumping in this tractor here that I've already got set up, and the first thing that you'll notice is that we have an interface that pops up on the right hand side of our screen, and in order to access that interface you need to click your middle mouse button, and that's going to free up your mouse pointer. Now you can grab this interface anywhere, drag it anywhere on your screen, and it's going to stay there. We'll just put it in the center for now so that I can explain a few features on this before we get started. Now when you're looking at this interface, we're going to start in the lower left hand corner. The button that I'm over right now, this turns the tramline on or off. However, it only turns the visualization off. It does not turn the actual tramline off. So if you're in a row that is creating a tramline, clicking this button will make it look like it's a perfectly seeded field, but it won't be planting along the tram line. So this is just to make it look prettier if that's your thing. The next button up is the optional fertilizer switch button, I should say. So if you have a seeder or planter that utilizes fertilizer, you can turn that on or off. This one does not, so we won't be testing that on this one. Now the next thing that we need to look at are these three settings right here, and these are the ones that you're going to be using most of the time. Now there are three modes: manual, semi-automatic, and automatic. And as you can see, the minute I go to automatic, it says GPS is not active on this vehicle. And so in order to use auto mode, you have to use guidance steering. It's another mod also by Wopster. I'm not going to be doing any tutorials on guidance steering today. I will be doing some setup, but I'm not really going to explain that part of it. I really want to focus on ProSeed right now. So as we continue around, we've got our distance. Now this distance setting is based on the distance of whatever equipment you're going to be pulling behind. So I'm going to be using a 36 meter fertilizer spreader today, and so I've got this distance set to 36 meters, and what this tells ProSeed is where to set the tram lines. So it knows that it needs a distance of 36 meters between each set of tram lines, because that's what I'm going to need when I come back through to spread my fertilizer. The next setting we have is track, and this is telling us what pass we're on. So right now it thinks we're on pass 3. We haven't set anything yet. It doesn't matter, but this would technically be track 1 or pass 1. A pass being one pass up the field, next one back, etc., etc. I'm sure you know that. Now the next button down here, this turns off half of your seeder. This display right here shows your seeder, and if I click this button, now the red shows the portion of the seeder that has been turned off. It will not seed from that half of the seeder, and I can switch to the other half, and I can go and turn it all right back on. The last button is a sound button. It creates warning signals for you, and I will turn that back on just so you can hear it. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're really going to look at the modes, and we're going to start with manual. Now in manual mode, it's exactly what it says. Distance is not taken into account. the tracks aren't taking it into account. It's completely up to you where you want your tram lines to be. And you do that by holding control and hitting the R key, and I will show you. We'll do a pass right now in manual mode. Fire up our seeder, drop it down, and we're going to start along this field. Now if you notice, there are no tram lines behind us right now. If I hit Control R, and turn on the Show Tram Lines button, now you can see that tram lines are being created, and you can also see we've got red marks down here. This is showing where the tram lines are on the seeder. This portion of the seeder is turned off to create the tram lines. If I hit Control R again, now those red marks disappear and the tram lines stop. So this is manual mode. This is the functionality that you have in manual mode. And you could do 10 passes and the next pass put in a set of tram lines. Pretty much any way you want, you can set up those tram lines. So that's manual mode for you. Now I'm going to run back down to the end of the field because we're going to start in the same spot again. And along the way I am going to switch to semi-automatic. Now semi-automatic, the important thing about semi-automatic to know is that this is the only mode where you can use a helper. So if you want a helper to do the job for you, you want to set this to semi-automatic. And in semi-automatic you have control over all of your settings. And let me reset our field real quick. Okay. Again, in semi-automatic mode is the only mode you can use a helper. The helper is going to take, well, ProSeed is going to still take your distance into consideration. It's going to keep count of the tracks, and it's going to turn the tram lines on and off when they're needed. So if I pull up and I can set what track I'm starting on here also. So say I need to start my worker in the middle of a field, but there's 2 passes left to go before it starts over, we could start on track 4. Here obviously we're at the beginning of the field, so we're going to start on track 1, and I'm going to hit H, let our helper start down the field. Now you can see that the helper is not creating tram lines in this first pass, and shouldn't be, because there needs to be a few passes taken care of before a tram line sets in, otherwise we're fertilizing the grass on the left hand side of the field. So I'm going to jump out and let him do his thing. And I am going to do a jump cut here to let our worker do a few passes so you can see exactly where he's putting in the tram lines and how we can use them. Now as you can see, I've jumped back into tractor with our helper, and she did put a set of tram lines down on that part of the field over there, and as she comes around to do the next pass, she should be putting in another set of tram lines. In order for the distance to be proper, she needs to do 6 passes between each set of tram lines. And with a little luck, this one will have tram lines, and there we go. So she's putting in tram lines there now, exactly where they should be, 6 passes apart. And so if we run over and grab our fertilizer spreader, which I've got just sitting right over here, we'll use this tractor. we're going to do a quick test and see how these tram lines match up with another worker using them. Get this lined up just right. That looks pretty good. We'll send our worker on their merry way down the field. And what I really want to see is when they come around, are they going to line up with that next set of tram lines? 36 meters apart. And the spread on this is just about right. It's just overreaching the outer edge of the field, so that looks good. But it looks kind of like our tram line on our next tram line might be off by a little bit. And I have a pretty good suspicion as to why that is, and I will fill you in on that when we see exactly where this worker ends up. And we all know how slow and tedious workers are when they're at the end of a field. And as you can see, we are not exactly in the tram line with the 36 meter turnaround. Now we can tell that the worker is where they believe they should be because our fertilizer is matching up perfectly on the already fertilized part of the field. But our tram lines are just not quite where they need to be. I'm going to shut this worker down and I'm going to go catch our tractor and stop her so that I can give you a little bit of more information here. So what's happening here is that when we have an even number of tracks, an even number of passes, ProSeed has to set the tram lines on the 4th track. They could set them on the 3rd or the 4th, it just depends. But in this instance, they're setting them on the 4th. Well, 4 tracks is not right for a 36 meter spread. This basically works best, ProSeed at least in my opinion, works best if you have a 3-to-1 ratio. So if I had a 12 meter spreader, 12 times 3 is 36, it's going to work out best. Now what ProSeed would need to do to make this work exactly right is that on the 3rd pass, a block of drills would be shut off here, and then when the worker turns around and comes back, that same block of drills would be shut off, so that the tram line is being created between rows 3 and 4. I hope that makes some semblance of sense to you. It does to me, but I've played with this for a few hours. So when we've got an even number of tracks, it makes it difficult for ProSeed to mark them exactly. Now that doesn't mean that the tram lines are bad. You can still use them. It just looks like you'd really need to use them manually. And maybe Wopster has already started working on something like this. Like I said, this is a new mod. He just released it not too long ago. And so considering the quality of his mods, and they're always very, very good, I'm sure that this will get sorted out. I'll get this tractor off of the field. And then we're going to take a look at auto mode. So we've seen what manual can do. We've seen what semi-auto can do. Now semi-auto would work out perfectly if you had that 3-to-1 ratio, like I said, because that 3-to-1 ratio, if I've got a 12 meter seeder to a 36 meter spreader, then every 3rd row the tramlines are going to be created, and that's exactly 18 feet apart. There's no guesswork, no question about the fact that that's going to take place. So with a helper and a 3-to-1 ratio, you should be all set. You should be good to go. Okay, now we are going to take a look at auto. We'll switch this over, and okay, so I didn't realize I didn't have GPS installed on this tractor, but I do now, and that's what's really important, right? So anyway, we're going to take a look at auto mode. I'm going to make sure the fertilizer is turned on, and the first thing that we need to do is activate our GPS, and then we need to set up GPS. I'm going to set an auto width, and that's 39.39 feet, and I am going to use the A+ heading. Cardinal direction is 0, and that should have us pretty well sorted out. It's not exactly finding the edge of the field. Let me try to reset that one more time. So I think it should be. There we go, that's better. So we can see that ProSeed is set in auto mode. We're at a 36 meter spread distance. We are on track 1 of 3. We have a 12 meter spreader, or a 12 meter planter, I'm sorry, seeder. And our visualization, at least, of our tramlines are turned on, and our fertilizer is turned on. And let me do a quick reset of the field so that we're starting from scratch. If I activate my guidance system, and now we are moving right along. And we can see our field, and we can see, I just wanted to show that we are using fertilizer at this point. And ProSeed is going to keep track of what track we're on, what pass we're on, so that it knows when to put the tram lines down. So as we come up to the end of this field, this is a pretty tight turnaround right here, so bear with me just a second. Activate GPS, start again, and this time you can see that ProSeed has turned off that portion of our seeder, and if we look behind us, we have got tram lines being laid in the ground right now, and those should work perfectly with a 36 meter spreader. As we come up to the end, and we are on pass 3. We should do 2 more passes before, stop that. We should do 2 more passes before another set of tram lines is put in. And I'm going to take this opportunity to show you that this in fact does stop fertilizing. So if I turn that off, we go look at our map, now all of a sudden there's no fertilizing. So that's actually a nice little feature. You know, if you've got a seeder that fertilizes but your field's already been fertilized, or you don't want to use fertilizer for one reason or another, you can just shut that down. I know there are other mods out there that'll do that for you also, but it's nice to have that option in this also. And then I'm just going to do one more, or make sure we get one more set of tram lines in. We're going to run one more quick test. To see exactly how our fertilizer spreader matches up to what ProSeed has accomplished for us. And then I'll probably do a quick time lapse to advance time enough to get the crops to grow, and you can see exactly what happens when they've grown. I know it's relatively obvious, but some people prefer those types of visual cues. But ProSeed is actually very nice. It's actually reasonably simple to use. I don't see any reason not to use it, especially if you're looking for realism in your play. I have either a good or bad habit of turning off crop destruction when I play, but I could see with a mod like this, it would actually be pretty nice to have that kind of control over exactly what's planted and what isn't, so that you're not just rolling through and destroying your crops. And there we go, that's our next set of tram lines. And they're kind of hard to see when the fertilizer's going down, but there they are. And I just realized that I want to get one more row of tram lines in. Shouldn't take too long, I hope you'll bear with me. The reason I want to do that is I want to turn off the visualization button to show you exactly what that's doing. And since we're going to do some crop growth before this is over, we can see that all this is doing is hiding the graphic element on your screen. And I should stop and turn around. Not quite that hard of a turnaround. Come on, Harv. Talk less, drive more. So yeah, we get to the end of this field, and our next turnaround we're going to see the tram lines turn on the seeder, but they won't be created on the field, or the graphic won't be created on the field. And you just saw our tram lines turned on right here. So we know they're working, but if you look behind this tractor, there's nothing there. So let me go ahead and hop over to our fertilizer spreader, and we're going to check out these tram lines really quick to see how they line up. They should be, since we have that 1:3 ratio, we should be sitting just fine. Okay, so as you can see, our crop has started to grow, and we are lined up with our tram lines. I am going to set a worker on this. I have got crop destruction turned on. That should not be a problem because we have tram lines. And there we go. Our worker is following them just perfectly. I'm not seeing any kind of crop destruction whatsoever. As there should not be. And what we're really interested in now is the turnaround here, which, you know, we're using a worker, so this is going to take the better part of a month, but she will get there eventually. And like I said, you know, we have that 1-to-3 ratio, so look at that, lines up just the way it should. You can see it best on the tractor tires. Looks good. And then as you can see, where we had the visual element of the tram lines turned off over there on our left hand side, those tram lines were in fact created. And I'm sure when she turns around, she'll pull right in there and run right down that row also. So that is our tutorial on ProSeed. I hope you found this helpful and useful in some way. I'm sure I didn't cover everything. I know I didn't cover everything. There are some advanced features that I could address in a future video if people are interested. If you are, let me know by clicking the like and subscribe buttons down below. And until next time, take care.